money on is you do the writing and I do the talking. That's how it works out.
That's a deal. I like that deal.
I support it, boy.
Oh, let's make sure this is live here. Yes, no, maybe. Yes. I'm getting an ad. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another author hangout on the Book Refuge. And tonight I am so honored and excited to have JT Geissinger here with us, who, as y'all know, wrote my favorite book of 2021. So we are excited to have her.
Yay! Thank you for having me.
Yes. And then y'all are probably used to seeing Madison and Tiffany on my channel. So we're happy to join me so that we can gush about you. But yeah, that's my intro. I know. Nice announcement for everybody. Let's see who's showing up here. We got someone staying awake in Germany for us.
Germany, nice. Hi, Daniela. Awesome.
I don't know how to pronounce this. Since your first book, wow,
that's a decade ago, by the way.
That outstands me. I'm just saying.
2012. Yep.
I've only been going for a couple of years. Your audiobooks are phenomenal.
Thank you.
I'll just say that. Like not even like just these ones, but like the contemporary ones too are fantastic.
I started doing that duet style narration with my narrators, and I just think it's a much richer experience than one person reading all the parts. So, yeah.
So good.
Thank you.
I mean, audiobooks are the reason why I can read the volume that I do, just because I can read at work. So I really appreciate a well done audiobook. Because
do you speed it up, or do you just listen to it normal speed?
I do. Yeah. I do a little bit. I don't quite go chipmunk speed as some of my friends are at. Like some of my friends go to like the 3.0 and I'm like, I don't know how you know what's happening. I don't know.
They just skip through like the sex scenes and then they slow it down really.
I have been known to do that. Yes.
Yeah, I do.
If you can get me to slow it down, you're doing the job.
I slow down the sex scenes. That's what I do. We'll slow it down.
Well, it would be weird to like listen on high speed sex scenes. I feel like you're just like, wait. What?
Yeah. Wait, did you do it? I don't know. That was fast.
And your books go there too. So like, especially like the Dangerous Beauty series, I was like, I am slowing this thing down because he is doing the job. Yes.
I gotta
it's not to be a good narrator either, because if it's not a good narrator, you sort of lose the flow. You know, you're in there and you go, and then it's like, oh no, whoa, no.
Yeah.
So,
Gotcha. You can't. Well, and you can't have. I mean, no offense to the men who your voice sounds like this, but you can't have a wimpy sounding man doing the voice of like Declan or Cage. Like you can't. It would ruin it all.
No. In fact,
and your heroes too, I like how they think about the heroines too. So I had to like slow that down. Like for the Slow Burn series, I was like, Jackson, oh my gosh, I need to slow this down. And I loved that audiobook because of like just all of like the Southern accents. It felt like a full cast. Like so good.
So that series was supposed to be like the first book had recipes, the second book had sonnets that I wrote, and the third book was supposed to have these sketches, which I actually did because she was a fashion designer, but I didn't get the sketches into my publisher in time, so none of them were included in the book. So that was a bummer. But
special edition.
Yeah.
I like that idea. I like that idea.
I know.
Okay, Madison.
I have all the thoughts. I'm always like, special editions of anything.
I mean,
it makes so much sense to do. It's like having the alternate covers. It's like people who love the series want both. Everyone wants everything.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's not an either or situation for me. Like
let's do it all. Okay.
Like people have the argument of that, of like, why are we saying one is better than the other? I'm like, that is not what I'm saying. I'm saying I would like multiple options for the book. Like this is
I want the hot man and I want the hot hands.
Yeah. And the hot voice and the whole thing.
Yeah. or the pretty ladies in like Gianna Darling's case with like the women on the front. I mean, I would 1000% buy a cover of Sloane. I would 1000%.
Oh,
see, that's the thing. Now that you know Sloane, you would. But romance covers have a certain thing that sells versus certain things that don't sell so well. So it's always, at least for me, it's been my experience, it's always good to either do a couple in a clutch or like a hot dude. And then you can do a special edition of, you know, something really pretty, flowers or something that's from the book that doesn't really, you know, a discreet cover, quote unquote.
Well, like, and that's the thing is like a discreet cover off the bat is kind of like a catfish for me either way. Because things could be super spicy with that, or it could just be like, oh, this was nice, you know,
right,
like
right.
nice.
Yeah, you never know. There's always a 50-50.
Yeah.
So,
But I have read, like, I've read books before with a really hot man on the cover, and I've been like, this is really not that.
that was the spiciest thing about this book,
right? It really is kind of like we should get some kind of a rating system. Like, okay, if there's a guy with no shirt on, that means a certain thing. But if it's just a couple kind of gazing sweetly at each other, that means it's. But I've read a book the other day that was just a woman on the cover. I'll tell you about this later because I want to give like recommendations of the books that I like. Because I'm more of a reader, actually. I love books so much. But the cover was just like this kind of, it's historical erotica. So the cover is just this woman kind of standing there. And then you open the book and it's like smut-o-rama. And I'm like, wow. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Loved it, by the way. So
yeah. No, I love that stuff. But no, I totally agree with you because there's nothing worse with like, it's either way. Like if you're ruined either way, like if you're someone who wants a sweet, clean romance and you get erotica, you are like scandalized. And if I picked up this book because I think it's sexy and then they only get to first base, I'm like, well, that was
disappointing.
You're 65% in, you're like, is this a clean romance? What am I reading? Yeah.
There's no greater panic. There's no greater panic.
They call that bangxiety.
I love that so much.
Yeah.
So true. It's so true. I love it. But that's why like there's that Twitter handle they did where like it's called the Does It Bang?
Yes.
Oh, I saw
we need that.
They literally have that. So like for the ones that are like cartoon covers where you don't know, like is this a bromance book club or is this like love hypothesis? They'll do like Does It Bang? And their point of bang, they have a definition. They're like, does it describe the event?
The actual
basically is white to black or no?
Yeah. I'm not a fan of the fade to black personally. I would like to see the entire encounter as long as it's done well. Because if it's done well, it's amazing. And then, you know, we've all read books where you're just like, okay, that is totally unnecessary. And I really don't want it because it's just not done well. And the emotion isn't there. And you're like, well,
yeah. And I mean, that's part of the reason, like, I just started I've started adding a spice scale into how I rate because I never did because I just didn't know how I would break it up because I don't know. To me, it can maybe not have super graphic terms and still feel very like sexy. So like, what's the difference? But I was able to figure out what now, like my viewers know what my spice scale is. But
I love your spice scale because she'll break down how many scenes. And then usually like if it's working towards emotional development, like the language, I'm like, yes, because that's the stuff that I want to know. Like, that's what I love about your scenes. Not only is it sexy, it's like working towards their emotional development. It's not gratuitous. It's there. And like, so.
I try not to, in fact, well, at least I think I don't put sex scenes in that are just purely gratuitous. It has to forward the story or it shouldn't be in there. And if they're just banging without any real emotional connection, that doesn't do it for me. I know a lot of people like to read, you know, smut or whatever we want to call it, erotica, where it's really just graphic descriptions of people having nice lovemaking, which is great. But for me to really enjoy the book, there has to be an emotional connection and there has to be a reason that these people are having sex. So it just makes it more, I don't know. To me, it makes it more meaningful. And it's more fun for me to write too, because once you the emotions involved, there's all kinds of different layers of why are we here and what's going on in the background and, you know, all that stuff. So I like a multi-layered experience.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I'm jumping into it because we're already starting to talk about some of my things. So these are one of my questions. Like, what books first got you into romance specifically, or, you know, where did your journey start with?
Let's see. Well, this is taking me back to the day, but the first kind of romance series that I remember reading was V.C. Andrews' Flowers in the Attic. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. It's a taboo, you know, brother sister kind of thing, which I was really, really young when I read that. And of course it's like I was so into it. But I first started writing because of the Twilight series, and
Yeah, you did.
and people have all of their own different opinions about it and the writing and what have you, but I loved the book. I tore through it, right? And so after I read the whole series, I read up about Stephenie Meyer, and there was an interview with her, and she said that she had no experience at all with writing. She didn't go to school for it. She was just a mom, a homemaker. And she had a dream one night. She woke up and she started writing it down, and then she had this great success. And I was like, well, if she can do it, I can do it. That's exactly what I said to myself. I'm like, okay, so you don't need to be, some New York Times, person that's plucked from whatever. But yeah, so that's why I started writing. And the first series that I started writing was paranormal romance. And I only did the one sort of fantasy series. I didn't go on with that. I switched to contemporary romance. But it was basically because of my love of reading. And I've always been a huge book nerd. I come from a family of bibliophiles. I mean, everybody in my family is just a giant reader, and I grew up reading. And books are my first love. And so I always sort of felt like I wanted to write a novel, but I didn't do that until I turned 40, which is a long time ago. So I just decided it's time. I want to do it, and so I did. I wrote a book and sold it to an agent, and she found a publisher, and that was that. So.
I love that.
That's my origin story.
Well, I think anyone who's read like more than one or two of your books has had a Twilight reference lived in. Like I haven't read all of them yet. I've read maybe 10, and I've at least half of them have had some.
They do. Yeah. So for me, all the things that leave a little impression on me, whatever it is, whether it's something in pop culture or music or whatever, there's a lot of little references and all little, Easter eggs in all my books about the things that have touched me or moved me to do certain things artistically. So yeah, you'll find that in a lot of my books. And Edward Cullen was one of my first loves, and then, you go back 10 years later and you read it and you're like, oh,
yeah.
So, everybody has that experience, right?
Yeah. But it doesn't take the love away. Because I started everything else I started pretty much because of Twilight as well. So I was reading historical romance before I ever read that, but that really led me like a lot deeper into things. So I love that. I love that it inspired you to be writing though. Me, it was like,
it was one of the first books that I read where I really felt the way that she wrote it. It was like as if the reader was the main character.
Exactly.
Before that, everything mostly was written in third person. So he said this, and it's a much different experience where it's more like I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And so when I first started writing, it was actually sort of kind of a difficult choice, but my whole first series was in third person, and then I switched to first person with my Bad Habit series, the Rockstar romance stuff, and that to me it just feels more visceral when I'm writing it, and it's almost like you're writing a diary at some point. It's like because you're saying I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and he said this to me, and now we're having sex, whatever. But so I just like that more immediate experience of writing in first person. Anyway, I got sidetracked. Yeah,
I love it.
Yay.
Well, okay, let me see here. So you already answered that one for me. See, I told you. I'm going to get through this stuff. Great job.
I have to blather, so just cut me off at any point.
We love it.
I'm a blatherer.
The next question I want to throw, though, because I do have one about your recommendations, but we'll save that, I think, for later. That can be kind of what we end on. But the first time I ever heard you did a live show in the Audible Facebook page, and you told this story, and I immediately told friends, and I would really like you to tell everyone because it's my favorite story I've ever heard.
Okay, but I don't know if I told the whole dirty dog down details story. Okay.
You probably told the high level. I don't care. It was adorable.
Yeah, but it's kind of, did I tell the scandalous part about it or no?
I kind of, that you were
engaged at the time.
That part you told them.
Okay. Yeah. So this is a long time ago, so I can tell it now because my husband and I are celebrating 25 years this month that we have lived together. So this is an old story, so I can tell it.
Yeah.
So I was at brunch one morning at Gladstone's in Malibu with my girlfriends, and we were just having brunch, and I just happened to look up, and there was a man staring at me from across the restaurant, and I just went, "Oh my God! Wow. Okay, that guy's so hot." So we just stared at each other the entire time we were there, and when we went to leave, he comes running out to the valet stand, and before he even asked my name or anything, he says, "Go out on a date with me." And I held up my hand and I said, "I'm engaged." And he goes, "How long have you been engaged?" And I said, 1.5 years. And there's this long pause, and he just looks at me and he goes, "It'll never last." And I was just like, okay.
Oh my God.
Okay. So he gives me his card. I go home. I break up with my fiance because I was having like serious like thoughts about this guy, right? Which you should not be having. I moved out because I was living with him. I moved in with my girlfriend, and 2 weeks later, I moved in with my now husband, Jay. And we've never been apart for 25 years. So yeah, he is one of the reasons that I mean, people, they'll laugh. They'll be like, okay, so you're writing, lust at first sight or love at first sight. It's like, it's an actual thing that can happen. You fall in love and it can completely change your life. And it totally changed mine. And he's my best friend. And he's the coolest guy I've ever known. And I'm so happy that I met him because it's kind of like Divergent. Like my life might've just gone off in this other, and I might've been fine and everything. And at the time, all my friends and my family are like, what the F?
Right.
What are you doing? What is wrong with you? And I'm just like, it's him. I just know it's him. It was like a thunderbolt moment. So
yeah,
he's lucky that he's cute.
Right.
He has these dimples, and I'm just like, ah. So, anyway,
that story's amazing. There's nothing scandalous about that because it worked out. If that had like not worked out,
nobody. I mean, yeah, it was a tumultuous time, but I was just like, this is it. He's the one. I'm going for it. So I did. Yeah.
I love that.
It makes sense.
Yeah. I think
there's telling that story. It's like, oh my God.
No, you went for it. You went for it.
I
love how you said you just went for it when you started writing. You went for it in your relationship. Like, I'm taking notes. I love it.
You're gonna be forward.
I had my mom died a few years ago, but she was a ballsy woman, and she was a badass. And so I kind of grew up with this idea of like, well, I can do anything if I just decide to. It never occurred to me that I couldn't. So I'm like, I'm just going to do it. And usually it works out. Sometimes it's like this horrific crash and burn, but usually it works out. So that's how I live my life now. Like, well, let's do it. Let's try it. And if it's horrible, move on,
Yeah. I mean,
or drink vodka. So
I feel right. I feel like that's not a story that would like happen now because we have too much like stranger danger in our lives to be like, I'm going to go on a date with this guy.
I would probably still be attracted to the stranger danger. Like, like, look at him. Although now, like some of the books that I write, for instance, Ruthless Creatures, literally in real life, if someone said those things to me, I would be like, sir, you need to step back because I'm calling the police, right? But there is a little bit of, you have to kind of, you have to go along with where it's a fantasy and whatnot. I'm not. But I'm an instruction manual for men. So I don't want the men to read this and be like, well, this is how we should act.
Yeah.
Unless
maybe a little,
you definitely have a lot of those scenarios in your books. Is it sorry, I got a book behind me. Is it Beautifully Cruel where it's the diner? Is it the diner in that one? Sorry. All of your books.
The diner. She's the waitress. That's the diner. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I love stuff like that. It's fantastic.
I keep waiting for my moment because of all these books.
I mean, part of our problem is
open because it's out there, right? But if you're sort of like, now I'm the kind of person like I drive around like this. I don't look at anybody, but you just got to keep it open, and the universe kind of sends you these little signals, and you got to go, okay, maybe, let's see, until he turns out to be a psycho, and then you say no next,
right?
Maybe
then you know when to move on.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for sharing that with them. Tiffany and two of my other friends, I was like, I just saw this interview.
It was
This
love
happened.
first sight. Yeah, I don't know.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's get into some of the writing stuff. So
Yeah.
I asked this question and people are always like, I don't have a typical day or I don't have this, but do you have a schedule you try to go by? What does it look like when you're in the middle of a book? Give us some of that. Juicy.
So yes, I do. I try to get 2,000 words down a day when I'm writing. And sometimes that will take me a couple hours and sometimes that will take me all day. It depends on the flow and what's happening, how I'm feeling, where I am in the book. The first part of the book is much more difficult because I don't plot. I just sort of get to know the characters, and I'm a very intuitive writer, so I go by whatever is feeling good. So I start a book with sort of an idea of two characters and the conflict. What is this going to be about? And then and kind of a blurb, like the story blurb, and that's it. And I just start getting into it. So as I'm writing, I have a notebook by me, and I'll try not to self-edit too much. I'll just keep writing and going on until, and maybe taking down some notes, like you need to come back and think about that. But I wear headphones. I write in bed always on my laptop. Just, I don't know why, it's just more comfortable there. And, I have my cat with me, and, and my husband comes out in and out every once in a while and brings me food. But, yeah, so like right now I'm in the middle of writing Brutal Vows, and I had a very compact timeline that I wanted to do this book in because I already knew the characters and I knew the story. So I didn't want to drag it out very long. So it's not going to take me very long to write it. But the funny thing is, as I'm writing, these little backstories pop up and these little side characters pop up, and I have to, and sometimes I just let myself go down some random road. Which I like, because I like to be surprised. And when I start crying or sweating or laughing, that's when I know it's good, right? If I'm just typing along and I'm doing whatever, then it's like, oh, that wasn't too juicy. I like to really get juicy with it, you know? Yeah. And so I don't do a lot of pre-planning because that takes the spontaneity out of it.
That makes sense.
Sure. So that means we're going to end up with like 7 books in the Queens and Monsters.
Right?
Nah. You know, I get bored. I mean, I thought I was going to write one. So Ruthless Creatures I started with. And the only reason I did that one as a mafia romance is because there was 2 books in the Beautifully Cruel series. I did not know that was going to be mafia. At the beginning, when I started writing this story, I just had Liam and True and the situation where this guy is coming into the diner and she doesn't know who he is. And there's some point in the story where she says something, she calls him her wolf or whatever. And I'm like, I stopped and I'm like, oh my God, is he a werewolf? Like, is this a shifter? Yeah, I didn't know. So then I'm like, no, I don't want to go back to paranormal romance. So I just kept going on, and he's always in black. And so it just turned out that he's a mafia dude, right? And that was exciting because I like sort of the morally gray anti-hero thing, you know? Because you can also, you know, they're very macho alpha males, but they can operate outside of the normal of things. So I like that. Yeah. So then I wrote those 2, and I'm like, I don't want to do anything more in this universe. So I just started Ruthless Creatures. And Ruthless Creatures, Cage had the dirtiest mouth. And so as I'm writing it, in the first couple chapters, I'm just like, I'm sorry, sir, what did you just say? And I told myself that I was going to edit that all out. I'm like, just go forward, just because no woman is going to want to hear this guy talk about finger fucking her at dinner. Like, you know, you can't do that. Okay. And at the end of the book, I'm like, it's just him. It's just how he talks. So I'm like, I'm just putting it out there and let's see. And some people were just like, okay, you know, it's too much for me. But other people, I mean, that's the most talked about book of mine for some reason, other than Perfect Strangers. So I've learned to sort of trust my instincts when I'm writing and these things come out, and I'm just like, man, okay, I'll just go with it. And yeah, I don't know if that answers any of your questions.
I love Cage's dirty mouth. I loved it.
Yeah. I loved it because I'll out her. She will not be mad about this, but the reason that because I had read some of your slow burn books. I'd read some of those a few years ago. Okay. And one of my author friends, her name is Juliet Cross, she read Ruthless Creatures, and she immediately was like, you have to read this book immediately, Jennifer. And I was like, oh, okay. She never reads books before I do. So like, you know, she's writing, and then I tell her what book she should read because she's been, you know, I vet them. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna read. And she's like, there's the scene with the hairbrush, and you just need to read it. And I was like,
Yeah.
calm down. So then we were hooked on it because
Okay, good. Well, good.
my author friend put me on, and then I was like, oh wow. And she has all these other books. Wow. So,
Yeah, I've got a lot of books. I mean, yeah, I've been writing for 10 years now. So although now I feel like some of these writers, these new indie writers, it's like they're cranking out a book a month, and I'm impressed. It's like, I don't know how you do that, because I need to think about this and do the whole, like, make it, enrich it as much as I can. But some people can type 5,000 words a day, or I should say,
but not all of them are as good as yours. Like,
well, thank you.
I mean, I'm not putting them down because they need to get the content out when they're building their name. But a lot of those authors that their books came out all in a year. That's not the best books they'll ever write. It's because they were building who they were.
Yeah, and everybody has a different path, and their strategies are totally different. For me, I started out in traditional publishing with Montlake Romance, and so there is such a long trail between when you start writing the book and when it's actually published. It's like a year and a half or something later. So, and it goes through so many rounds of developmental editing, proofreading, line editing. I mean, it's like 6 months of you working on this book. And, you know, actually, I'm happy that I'm not doing that now. I'm publishing independently because I think, just as a creative person, my mind works so much faster than that. So I'm done with that project, and I don't want to think about it anymore. I mean, half of the books that I've written, I'm just like, I don't even remember what they're about. I'm on to the next thing, you know?
Right.
So.
And they might not have liked Cage as much as we do. And then where will we be?
Some people don't. I mean, I get some reviews. The 1-star reviews are actually my favorite. When I first started writing, I was so horrified and hurt by the bad reviews. And now I read them out to my husband, and we just piss ourselves laughing, because sometimes they're hilarious, right? These people get so mad that you wrote this thing, and I'm like, okay, but you're reading all of my books, and you're rating them. Right. You know what? You're a fan, even though you don't think you are. You're reading all these books, so yeah.
I love those TikToks where it's like, let me convince you to read this based on 1-star reviews. I love that kind of TikToks.
I get some of my best books from 1-star reviews that are complaining about how dirty it is and how dare they. I'm like, TBR. I love those.
I know.
He was so degrading to her. I couldn't stand it. And I was like, okay, but what kind of degrading?
Yeah, but how degrading? Like,
like, what do you mean?
For me, there's a line. Okay? For me, the line is consent, right?
Yes.
So you can get as dirty as you want, but as long as she's at least saying, okay, let's try.
Yes.
There's books where you're just like, okay, you're having anal sex and you haven't even talked about, like,
right.
You're like, what's going where? Like, no one said anything about, like, hey, is this okay?
Did I just slip and go in the wrong place? I don't know, but yeah, there's a lot of ways you can go with that. But for me, I like to get, really down in there, but as long as they're both on the same page of where it's going.
Right.
Because otherwise it can feel icky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like specifically in that series, there's a lot of like, okay, tell me more. You know, there's a lot of like, you don't know that you're going to like this. Let's see how it is. Like,
and as long as she goes, all right, and then she's like, oh yeah, babe, so that's okay.
Yeah. Well, that's my thing with, like, between that consent and non-consent is like knife play. Knife play is like, it's fine so long as it is consensual. The second they're just like using a knife, doing stuff, I'm like, okay, no one has said anything about that. This is okay. So that
are you kidding me now? Yeah.
I'm like, where is this coming from? I'm like, please remove it from the situation. I could be like, is this okay? And she's like,
well, to me, that's the difference. Okay, like a mini rant here. That's the difference in reviews where people say there is knife play or blood play. I'm like, is it play or is it you are hurting someone? Right. Because when you put it in like there's knife play in this book, that to me tells me it's a BDSM and we are consenting to this. Or is she being held at knife point and he's cutting marks into her? That's not knife.
That's not the same thing.
He's scarring her without permission.
And so this is the thing about reviews, is that it's so individual to the person. I mean, some of my most beloved books have some really horrific overall ratings, and people, for whatever reason, they don't get it. And I'm just like, this book moved me and I loved it. And so you have to kind of take it all with a grain of salt. And,
Yeah.
5-star reviews are great. 3-star reviews are very helpful because
Yeah.
they are honest about what they didn't like and they'll tell you what they did like. And I think 3 stars is sometimes kind of a good thing to look at when you're trying to decide whether or not to read a book.
Ooh, that's a good tip.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
Even I think when I write 3-star reviews, I go like way into detail. I'm like, this is the reason why.
Yeah. So you didn't love it, you didn't hate it, and then you'll articulate your problems with it and also what you didn't like. If you loved it, you go on a rant about how much you loved it. If you hated it, this author is the worst thing in the world. So those aren't always so helpful, but star reviews can be helpful.
Yeah. Well, moving to the next one. I feel like you kind of answered this, but just if there was anything else you wanted to say about this. You said characters, but what about when you are like starting the series brand new?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have the seed of the plot, or do the characters pop up first? Like, what's that like for you?
It depends on the series, but just for instance, like with Beautifully Cruel, which I didn't know I was going to make into a duet, but Killian decided he wanted his own book. But a lot of times I will just think of these two characters and the conflict. And then go from there and learn as I go and sort of just keep a beginner's mind and allow myself to understand what is compelling about these two. And there always has to be conflict because nobody wants to read about the land of happy people. That's boring, right? So we have to have what is going on here. And I like a good mystery. I like at least at the beginning where you don't really know who is this guy? What is he doing? Why, or you identify with the female character, or at least hopefully some aspect you do, but she's trying to figure out who is this freaking dude. And so by the time that is established, who he is, there's another mystery or something that has to get solved. So that pulls you all the way through the plot. Yeah. But like a few books come to me just from, well, only one actually, Perfect Strangers. I don't know if you guys have read that, but that's more like a psychological literary sort of a thing. And I think somebody described it as Inception disguised as a romance novel, because it's like a book within a book within a book. So that book, I was just browsing a stock photo site and I came across this photo and I just went, oh, shit. And I just got the meat of the book from that picture. And so that book kind of came to me almost fully formed. A lot of them, I have no idea. But so my next book that's coming up, Pen Pal, after the end of the Queens and Monsters series, is a total standalone. And it's kind of like that. I saw this picture of the cover model and the way he was standing. And I was like, oh, yeah, I know what I'm going to do with you.
Hello.
Yeah,
let's do this.
So it is kind of just I let the inspiration come to me and then I figure out what I'm going to do with it. And I try not to overthink it. This is the same way that I live my life, is kind of just like one day at a time. Let's just see what happens and let's make the most out of that. And then we'll keep doing that and go along and adjust as we need to. Instead of the one time I tried to plot out a book, it was like a 10,000 page plot of each chapter, what was going to happen, all the different, and at the end of it, I said, I hate this. And I never wrote that book. I never wrote it because I'm very intuitive and I go by my gut. So I let that string me along.
Well, none of the fun was there anymore because you were trying to plan it, right? So
I don't want to know what's going to happen. I mean, as I'm writing it, sometimes my husband I'll come out of the room after I'm writing. He's like, you're insane, right? Because he'll hear me laughing or I'll start crying and he's like, and I'm like, oh, Mal just said this to her. And he's like, but you're the one who's writing it. I'm like, you don't understand. Just go away. It's just
look pretty for me.
Yes. Flash your nipples at me, honey.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, we have some of the viewer questions here that were sent to me that are some more specific ones. So someone asked what Liam and True are up to.
Oh, they are living their best life.
That's
they're living their best life. well, she's a mom now, so you know, it's so weird because once I'm done with characters, it's like they're still there, but I don't have. It's sort of like they're just off doing their thing, and they're simmering down here on the back burner.
Yeah.
I'm not really thinking about them anymore. I don't know if I'll ever bring them back in any. I mean, that because the Beautifully Cruel series sort of intersects with the Queen and Monsters. You know, there's some overlapping there. I could. But I also I want to keep it fresh, so I don't want everybody like, oh, here's this recycled character. You know, that, but,
I think it was it's a lot of fun when you just get name drops. Like in my opinion, where it's like if you know, but if you're just like, oh, there's someone named Killian, cool. And I was like, oh, there's someone named Killian. Sounds like somebody I know. You know?
Yeah, well, good, because other people they read it like who's Killian, you know? So it's hard to satisfy everybody. But they're doing great.
That's a perfect answer. They're happy. That's a fun fan question.
They're surviving. They're living.
They're living. Yeah.
You don't have to have it all mapped out.
I don't know.
That's enough. Who are your favorite love interests that you've written?
Well, okay, so Midnight Valentine is one of my books that is very special to me. I don't know if you guys have even heard that or read of that. She's a widow, and she moves to a small town to get. She was her and her childhood sweetheart were married, and he died, and she moves away to a small town to try and get over him. And she starts to renovate this B&B because it was their dream together to renovate a B&B. Okay, but she runs into this guy who is kind of like the town recluse and mute, and he also is a brilliant contractor. So he starts helping her with this B&B. And then she discovers that this guy has so many similarities to her dead husband that she is like, I don't understand what's happening here. And then you get deeper and deeper into that story. I have goosebumps telling you about this.
I know. I'm like, oh my God.
I know. I'm like, where's my pen?
Yeah.
I know. I just grabbed it up.
So Midnight Valentine is, it's a very haunting love story. And the tagline is true love never dies. So that kind of gives you an idea about what it's about. So I love that couple. I love the whole concept of true love never dies and true love conquers all. That's like everything that I believe in. So that couple, and who is another of my favorite couples? I'm trying to think. Cameron and Joellen in Melt for You, because she had a lot of insecurities about her physical appearance. And they started out as friends, and she was in love with her boss, and he is trying to sort of coach her how to have more self-confidence and take care of her. But a lot of the things that he says to her in that novel about body positivity and learning to love yourself and not to take what anyone else thinks about how you look into account, just do, whatever makes you feel good. A lot of that, I think, I don't know. I love that couple. So, and there's probably others, but like I said, once I write the book, it's like, okay, rear view mirror, next.
I'm getting it.
Actually, you know what? Declan and Sloan are probably my favorite couple.
Thank you.
Now that I say that, yeah, that's probably my favorite couple.
I was just waiting for that one. She's the fucking best. Okay, she's the best.
Yeah.
Well, and I have to ask, because you said that when you wrote Ruthless Creatures, you were just like, I'm just going to write this. So did you know, like, pretty instantly when you'd written Sloan as, like, Sloan, you were like, she needs to, like, how can you not?
Sloan decided that and I know it sounds really super weird, but some characters, they will take center stage, and they will demand that they are going to be the person in this book that needs their own book. Yeah. And, I tend to make my side characters very big. They're very big personalities because, sometimes it can be comic relief or what they're a foil for the main character, but they can also do and say a lot of things that the main character sometimes can't because they're, they're not quite in the same position. And Sloane just immediately, you know, I really was just drawn to her because people talk about strong women, right? Okay, well, a strong woman doesn't mean that you have to be a gigantic bitch or that you have to be negative or whatever it is. It just means that you're grounded in who you are, right? Mm-hmm. And she's very grounded in who she is. She's self-confident in who she is. Yeah. And she knows that she's a lion and she wants everybody to hear her roar. So, but it took her a lot to get there because she was victimized, but she refused to be a victim. And so, I just love that about her. And I love her sense of humor because I really enjoy people with a sense of humor, and that she's smart and that she's hot, but she doesn't give a shit really about that. It's not about that for her. It's about, hey, I don't need you, but maybe I'll let you into my universe. We'll see, you know? And I love that that Declan is just used to being in charge of everything. And he just did not know how to deal with this woman. He took over his whole life and she just took over all the guys and everybody just kind of, you know, falls at her feet. And part of the reason they do is because she doesn't need them to. She doesn't care. Yeah. You know, she's just like, I'm glad to have you. And if you're going to move along, that's fine too. So yeah, they're a great couple, and it's great to write enemies to lovers with that kind of banter, because there's a lot going on underneath just the snarky words, you know.
Your banter. That's like one of my favorite things in books. Is like if an author can do banter really well, it speaks volumes.
I'm gonna need a new copy soon. This is one of the first like books I've like
drool all over that. What am I looking at?
Oh, sorry. You can't see. Like I've split the binding on this one, which never happens.
Okay.
It, like won't close anymore because literally
I see little highlighghted little things.
Yeah, I've literally highlighted the whole whole thing. I've read this one 4 times.
Wow. Okay.
I don't have time for that. That's my point.
You need a virgin copy. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm ready for this. But anyway, I love
Brutal Vows. You're gonna like Brutal Vows because it's another enemies to lovers. And I don't know if you read this synopsis, which is just basically it's an arranged. Yeah. Oh, the tropes. Okay, it's arranged marriage, not with who you think. I don't write virgin heroines, and I don't think I ever will. It's been so long since I was a virgin, I can't relate to that. So
I'm very excited to meet. I'm very excited to meet his heroine because I love spiders. So I'm ready to meet her.
Okay, she's very Sloane-like. So
is she?
Yeah, she's a badass, and she's a Cosa Nostra. They call her the Black Widow. I'm not going to say anything more than that, but
yes, I'm excited.
She's a badass. So that's going to be really fun. So the tropes are enemies to lovers, arranged marriage, not even grumpy sunshine, probably grumpy.
Yes. I love grumpy.
Yeah. And there's so much freaking banter in this thing. I mean, it's like zoom. They're like cutting each other with knives the whole time. So it's a lot of fun.
I mean, I love Spider, and I love that he's at the point where like, fuck all this shit. Like nothing's going the way I wanted to go. Fine, I'll do it. And I'm so excited for it.
And so I had to pair him with someone else who was equally jaded, right? Yeah. Because the good thing is when you have 2 people who are so jaded, and then you can start to deconstruct that and see them make this honest emotional connection where they can get beyond all of the crap that has happened to them. It's sort of more meaningful than you just, 2 happy people who fall in love. It's like 2 people who have a lot of baggage and who've really been hurt, and they can kind of come together. It's more come together. You know what I mean? Not like that, but
I mean, I'm sure
they'll that too.
JT. They'll be
saying. So yeah.
Well, I think that's a good I know you said you don't want to get bored of a series, and I think that's a good way to change that up because, each of the books in the series, it's been the hero really like head over heels right off the bat, which I love that, not complaining about it. But I think that's a nice way to change that dynamic where it's like, I'm here out of obligation and loyalty. Whereas, I mean, you had like the very like reluctant, like, oh, fuck, I'm in love with this woman. God damn it. What am I going to do? I feel like, oops, I think she's a prostitute. I better rescue her. Or, all these different
I know. Yeah.
Love that.
I don't know where I come up with this. I'm just.
I literally like, I don't know if my friend Jess is in the chat, but she just reread Savage Hearts today. And she's like, this book is so funny. Like, why does he think a prostitute would be wearing grumpy clothes or like frumpy clothes? Like, I'm so confused.
He's a dude and dudes are stupid. So,
and I mean, he has a little bit of a hero complex in there. He doesn't.
They all do. And so that's another thing about my heroes is that they're not. They can be alpha holes, but they're never mean. I don't like mean. Mean with men is fine, but I don't like guys who are mean to women. They might not like them. They might treat them. They might be aloof or I'm just kind of an asshole in general, but I don't like a male character who says demeaning things or you know what I mean? It doesn't make me like him. And there are a lot of alpha holes out there who are really terrible to these women. And when I read that book, I'm just saying, DNF. I can't fall in love with him, no matter how. And usually they're redeemed somehow. But it's like, if you're calling her names or you're treating her like a second-class citizen, go away.
Like they could be flustered with her. Like that's really what I feel like in Carnal Urges is he's like literally flabbergasted. Like, will you just shut up? Like, just stop talking because I can't keep up with you. That's a good point.
But at some level, all of my heroes, no matter how broken they are or how they may be socially inept or morally gray heroes, they still have a borderline respect for women. So I don't have cheating in any of my books. I don't have non-consensual sex. There's a point where you can push the limits, but she has to say, okay, yes. Like in Beautifully Cruel, he throws her down on the bed and he's like, are we doing this or not? And she's like, yes, but I'm still going to hate you after. Okay. That's okay. But just don't, life is too grim, like to read some of that stuff. So, although I do have to say there's an author named Kitty Thomas who does all that stuff so well. And I lap it up. So there are some instances where it can really, really work, but I don't know. That's just not the guys I fall in love with. They can be jerks, but they still have to be totally in love.
Yeah.
And it's so sexy when your heroes make the heroine say it. Tell me what you want. Oh, I love that every single time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because it's a very difficult thing, right? And to be vulnerable in intimate situations, right? And anybody can just bang it out, and you've had too much to drink, or you're not going to talk about it. But it's much more. The stakes are so much higher when somebody actually verbalizes what they need. I mean, that kind of, you can really set you back. And then if it's provided, if this person listens to you and you listen to them and it's reciprocal, I don't know. I just think that's what it's all about. Like, it's about like finding somebody who gets you and that you can, give them what they need to. To me, that's what romance is about, right?
Yeah.
So,
and it's revealing too, to not only say this is what I want, but like when the heroine says something like, I want everything, I want you, that's the moment where I'm like, okay, we're escalating into this thing where it's not just about like the physical. Oh, I love that. And I love that your verbal volleying too is really revealing because it's sharp, it's comedic, but it's also a double-edged sword because it's revealing. I'm like, okay, Declan, you're caught up in this. So I am excited about Brutal Vows.
Yeah, Brutal Vows is I cried in the first chapter. So there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff where I'm just like, oh, I know it's getting good when I start getting all emotional while I'm writing it,
Yeah.
And then once they finally come together and you start talking about their backstories and why these people are the way they are, that is it's fun too. But yeah, it's gonna be a good book.
Yeah, I mean, I'll never stop talking about this book. So, in the Carnal Urges, one of those points that I really, really liked. Sorry, I'm gonna keep bringing it up.
I love you.
Is that quality where, okay, I don't want to spoil this for people, but whatever, it's my favorite book. So the points in the story where Sloane has made it obvious that like, yeah, I love you, but there's a loyalty split here,
right,
between you and the real love of my life,
my girl, who is the love of my life, right? Who's
the
had my
love of
back.
my life, which kind of just like broke me in half because that's how it is in my life. So I was like, oh my God, yes. And the fact that he will literally go on a murderous rampage to kill every other mafia boss that exists so that he can work out a peace treaty for his woman.
I mean,
how?
It doesn't get bigger than that, right?
It doesn't.
I'm going to make everybody alive so that we can be together.
Yeah. So much like
true romance.
that is, let me go on a murdering spree for you. This is so much.
I think you need to find a mafia guy.
I don't actually want any of that, but
no, I know, right? Not in real life. You'd be like, hello, 911.
Right. I take a cosplay of it. Like we can role play this. We can pretend that happened.
Fun. Oh yes.
I like that.
We can pretend that you did that. You could just say it, and then it's fine. But
hilarious.
I love it. Don't ever stop. I promise, Whitley, I will never stop talking about it. It's
That's
great.
Awesome.
It's
That's
great.
awesome. Well, the funny thing about that book too is that a lot of people complain. One of the 1-star reviews said there's so much talking. There's so much talking. And I laughed at that because one of my pet peeves, and one of the reasons I will DNF a book, is if it's total exposition for chapters and chapters, and it's inner conversations with themselves. It's like you have these people talking to each other. That's the meat, right? Where they're interacting and they're fighting or they're doing whatever. It's like
Well, the book just has like such high stakes. And your power go out? What just happened?
Oh no, this always happens with my light. Hang on.
I was like, what happened? Is there...
It's my
whoa.
Okay. Look, I've had my ring light for God since 2000. Anyway, however long I've had it for. And for some reason, the body of it, if it like moves even like a little bit and it unplugs, it will turn off.
Get any more light? Yeah, I have the worst light.
Super finicky. She's super finicky, and I was just like, but that's never happened though.
Sorry, train of thought is that book has like such high like emotional stakes in it, which makes it very great. Like the scene after poker, where literally my jaw hit the floor, where I was like, oh my gosh, what's about to happen right now? And they're just both so dramatic. They're both so dramatic. And with the gestures and I just love that.
Yeah, it's very angsty, and I like characters who are very passionate with all the, so I watched this movie. It's one of the Oscar nominees. And I won't say which one because I don't want to diss it, but it's very arty, and it's very well done. But I'm watching it and I'm like, it's so dry. There's no passion. There's no. Everyone has kind of this monotone. I'm like, after 20 minutes, I said I can't because there's no stakes. There was nothing there that was compelling me to watch further. So I like books and I like to write.
Why are you guys in love? Like why?
Like who cares? Why you're just eating your dinner? Like why am I watching this? Give me some meat to go on here, you guys. It's like so boring, but anyway.
Well, it's like how you said the angstiness. Like you said angst, and that's something that I always look for in books. It doesn't matter what the trope is, as long as there's that angst with the characters.
Yeah,
that really like pulls you in.
Yeah,
or even like tension. Like it doesn't always have to be.
It can, because you don't want full on angst all the time, right? It can do this, but some kind of tension, some kind of intrigue. You need to have that, or else it's boring.
Well, like who are the like? I'm meaning this that you can also answer this if you want, but who are the authors like that you can't put their book down because each, like you have to know what the next thing is going to be and like where it's going. If there's a dull spot in the book where someone can easily put their bookmark in. What's keeping it rolling,
That's one of the things that I do like to include in my book is sort of mini cliffhangers. So in order to pull a reader through the book, this is just sort of a technical aspect of writing. You don't want to end a chapter where everything has been resolved in that chapter, right? Because then that's a place to put it down. So you
Right.
want to have it be like, and then I opened the door and he was hanging with the blood off his neck, end of chapter or whatever it is, so that keeps a reader moving through the book. That's just a little sort of a writer thing, but it helps the reader.
That makes so much sense to why your books are like hard to put down.
I was
like, this makes sense.
Yeah. So just a quick note, everyone who is watching along with us, I have one more preset question. So if you want to start putting questions in the chat, we can go for a little bit longer here. So this one, someone had asked about, I know you, I don't think you started this one really yet, but what kind of is your vibe for that one? That
Dawn,
you want to share?
Yeah. So Dawn, I gotta smooth the hair out. This book is going to be a mind effer. It's a romance, but it's also psychological thriller fiction. So there is a lot going on in the background that you won't know until the final sentence of the book. And then a lot of this stuff will make sense because if you've read Perfect Strangers or Midnight Valentine, you'll get an idea of what I mean when I say that there are going to be twists in this book that you're not going to be able to see coming, because I'm not going to drop any like red herrings where you think, oh, maybe this is happening or maybe that's happening. It's not. At the end of the book, you'll look back and go, oh, okay, I see what was happening here. It's a love story, but it's a dark one and it's a standalone. So it's not going to be related to anything else. Yeah.
I mean, as long as it's all contained in one thing, I'm ready to go on your board.
It is. It's going to be twisty. It's going to be sexy, and it's going to be dark, and it's going to be kind of at the end. You're going to go, oh. So.
I love a heady power dynamic, so I'm excited to get my hands on that.
Yeah,
that's my
cover
itch.
Like that. It's it better deliver with a cover like that.
That model, his name is Soj Mani, and he has an OnlyFans page for anybody who's interested in that.
Thank you. No.
Like, you will see things that this guy does, and you're like, I just have to close my computer and go walk away for a while because
my brain.
Or you can just look on his Twitter. I mean, it's all hanging out there. This guy is just like
one of my favorite cover models ever is a adult performer. So. But I saw him on the cover.
Look at those eyes. He's like, ah. Wow.
His name is Quentin James. You're welcome. Look him up.
Yes.
Don't you feel like that should be the name of a lead character?
Yeah. Well,
real name, though.
I mean, I'm sure it's not his real name. So he is a character and something. But he's done he's on a bunch of mafia covers. Because I mean, he's British.
His tongue is famous.
Oh. Okay, I have to read that. No,
I clearly need more.
Yeah. It's literally called it's called the Kitachi tongue in his.
I don't even know what that means, but
I'm
all in.
I don't know what that is, but anyway, I literally was like, I was approached to read this book because they'd known I love mafia, and they showed me the cover, and I was like, I'm reading it. Don't care what's in it. I'm gonna read it. I'll give it a try.
And then Jen hooked us all up. Then she hooked us all up.
And then there's 10 books in that series. So
you know what would be fun is if you had other authors all like read one book, and then we all got together and talked about what we thought about this. Like if we liked it, I'm not dissing anybody's books, but if we could all sit around, do a round table about what we loved about some book, that would be fun. Okay.
I think what would be interesting too of I know people authors might not want to do this for their own brand, but it'd be very interesting to have where everyone had the same cover inspiration and then what kind of a story they wrote.
Oh yeah,
what that is.
Even if it was just a short story or some kind of anthology that did that. Yeah. I've seen that done with one sentence. I think Colleen Hoover did that, or somebody did that with one first sentence, and then everybody went off from there. That's really interesting too.
Oh, I like that.
What's that noise? Somebody had a motorcycle go by.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in New York City.
Yeah. So Monica asked if Kieran is going to get a book.
Nope. No,
sorry.
Kieran is one of my favorites, but he is a side character. He is not same as Diego, who I never saw as a main character, right? So he ended up being the boss just by accident, and then I killed him off because I'm just like, I love you, Diego, but you're out of here. So nope, Kieran's not getting a book, but he is in Brutal Vows.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you already ask what? Oh yes, we were going to ask this.
I get asked this all the time. And one of the reasons I think I get asked this is because people, or at least my readers, would like to know what books maybe are similar to mine. I don't read romance as a general rule, especially when I'm writing, because I don't want other authors' words or ideas to get into my head. I absorb everything. So I get inspiration from all over. And I just find that it's better not to have anybody else's ideas in my head. That being said, there are a few books that I have read that will never leave me. And some of them, most of them are kind of dark and some of them are semi-romance, but I tend to like things that don't have a tidy HEA. For whatever reason. Yeah, I like the dark stuff. So I made a little list. Most recently, The Idea of You by Robin Lee. It's an older woman, younger man romance. She has a daughter who's a teenager, and she takes her teenage daughter to go see this boy band. And they end up meeting the band, and she ends up falling in love with this very young man. And all of the things that ensue from that, the collapse of basically her life because she's in love with him.
Wow.
It's so moving. And it's one of the few books that I have ever read that talks about women, especially women over 30, and what we deal with in society as far as how we look, especially as we're aging, how we're compared to younger women or women who look a certain way. But it's not heavy-handed. It's not preaching about that. It's just in the dialogue. And I just found it very beautifully written and moving and haunting. So that one I would definitely recommend anybody read. Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor. It's one of my favorite books.
Beautiful.
I love that whole, and one of the things that I appreciate about her and about other writers of her caliber is the use of language, which a lot of people don't talk about. So
writing, yeah.
So I appreciate lyrical writing and writing that moves you and writing that is very emotive or evocative, where you can picture the whole scene. It's very difficult to be a writer who writes at a literary level, but who's also very readable. Usually they're two different things.
Right.
Laini Taylor has the most gorgeous writing style, but she's so imaginative and creative, and these worlds that she creates are just, to me, just stunning, visually stunning. And there's always a beautiful love story in there too. So Daughter of Smoke and Bone trilogy. Okay.
Good one.
Going on, The Butterfly Garden. Ever heard of that one?
I feel like I've heard of that one.
Okay, it's not a pretty story. Psychological thriller, beautifully written. Jodi Picoult, Leaving Time. That's another book that I won't ever forget because of the twist at the end. It's a young girl whose mother has died, and she doesn't know she's died, but that's not a spoiler either. She thinks her mother abandoned her, and so she enlists these people to help her find her mother. But her mother was like an elephant expert, and a lot of the book is about elephants and the matriarchal society that they have. And at the end, there's such a huge twist that I did not see coming. I was so floored that I'll never forget that book. The Sea of Tranquility by Kat Chemillet. You guys ever hear of that one? She only wrote one book, and I don't know why. It's a young adult love story, and it's beautiful, and she was never heard from again. But The Sea of Tranquility is one that I always, Okay, and my most recent favorite, We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. Psychological thriller. At the end, you're like, oh! So,
yeah.
I love that.
So funny. I definitely stay away from those.
You don't like all that stuff?
I need it. I mean, this is
I just looked at Butterfly Garden, and I had a friend who read that because I remember her telling me the synopsis for it, and I was like,
it's dark. It's super dark. I like smart books that you kind of go, and then afterwards you sort of feel a little bit dirty, but you can't stop thinking about it. It's just so smart, and you're like, God.
And you're changed.
in my next life, I'm going to write dark literary fiction. I think everybody's going to be dead at the end. It's going to be bleak. I think I'm going to do that. But for now, I love love. My Dark Vanessa, another one.
Oh, I read that one.
It's a power play, student teacher, but not in a romantic way.
One. A thing about that one, I read that one because I heard what it is about, and I was like, as someone who really enjoys that as a romance, I was like, I feel like it's good to read a realistic version once in a while to remember this is a pretty harmful situation in real life generally, and it shouldn't be romantic.
The whole thing is a trigger warning, and you shouldn't be. And it's like, but it was presented that way. And what I loved about it is that the girl believes she's in love, right?
Yeah.
And as we do when we're young and you fall in love and you don't know, right? You don't know what's going on. And it's only with sort of the lens of maturity 20, 30 years later that you can look back and go, I was victimized in this situation. But the book is so beautifully lyrically written.
Yeah.
And the one that I just most recently read that I loved, it's called A Lady of Rooksgrave Manor.
Yes, you did.
Historical erotica. Dude. So my husband did something to his hand, and I had to rush him to.
We were all like,
I had to rush him to the not the emergency room. What's the other one where it's like the step down?
Urgent care.
Yeah. So he's in there, and I'm like, what am I going to read on my? So there was some recommendation came up. I swear to God, I was like, I could not take that book away from my nose. I just was like, it's so interesting and different and spicy, and I really liked it.
I just read she has her whole Megaverse series, and I never read a Megaverse before. It wasn't something I really delved into, but she has a really beautiful way of doing it, and I loved it. I was like,
I don't even know what that is. What's a Megaverse?
I didn't know either until I started. I don't really know.
It sounds like big and epic and involved.
It's like to do with like,
it's a big polyamorous love puddle.
Oh.
Let's call it that.
Polyamorous.
Let's call it that. There's definitely more to it. I'm not trying to do it.
Okay.
It's a polyamorous love puddle. There's alphas and
love
betas.
puddle.
Yeah, different hierarchies.
Passing swords and
wow. Okay.
all the puns. There doesn't have to be sword crossing, but usually in the good ones, I'd say there is.
Yeah, she had sword crossing in this reverse harem, so that's what I really liked. And the relationship that the heroes had with each other in relation to her. That's what made this one unique for me.
Yeah.
And it set me down the spiral.
I might want to write reverse harem at some point because I'm interested in that.
The scene where they go to wake up the vampire. Come on.
That
scene is a lot of I love that thing so much. And like
the sex scene with the vampire, the first scene, I'm just like, oh, I love bitey sex. It's so hot.
Vampires are just like always a check for me. I'm always like,
so good.
I'm also like, I'm a whore for size different situations.
Oh yeah.
I love size different situations. So whether it's like paranormal or even if it's just, big dick Declan, like that's fine.
Yeah. Big Daddy D. Yeah.
The thing oh gosh. That joke in Savage Hearts, I peed my fucking self. I am not even kidding you. Generation D, what's that, honey?
Generation D, yeah, never mind.
He means daddy. And he's like, oh, I am your daddy. I'm like, yes, you are. I love it.
It's so funny. I actually call my husband Big Daddy, like as a joke, because I think he's sort of like, don't call me that. Like he thinks it's weird. But if we're somewhere, I'll like say it out in public in front of people because it makes people they're like, hey, Big Daddy, do this, and they're like, oh my god, like what is this?
They're like,
do they know you write romance novels? Does everybody know, or are you like?
Yeah, and you know what? I wish.
So then they look at you like. Big Daddy.
I look very conservative and whatever. And some people read my books and they're like, dude, okay. So when I first started writing romance, my dad was so proud that I got this publishing contract and he ordered like tons of copies of my books. And he's an aerospace engineer, right? He's like in his 70s. And I was like, Dad, there's like a lot of sex. And he's like, oh, it'll be fine. We're all mature. So he gives them all out to all of his friends, right?
Oh, no.
Yeah. And then afterwards he's like, so how did you learn about that? I'm like, I just making it up. I'm totally making it up. And my mom is like, well, maybe she could teach you a thing or two. And I'm just like,
no.
I was so traumatized. No, so bad. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, people know. And I wish they didn't, because a lot of times people will project their idea of what you must be like.
Yeah.
I love to read that stuff and I love to write about it. It doesn't mean, that in real life I'm doing all of these things or whatever. It's just like people get a little
They think you can't have an imagination, like you can't like write something you haven't
like
experienced.
Stephen King isn't out there killing people and burying them in his backyard. It's like we're just making this stuff up, you guys.
They never say that. They never say that to people writing mysteries or whatever.
And they don't say that about Stephen King. That
or
just
like,
goes to show.
You wrote about a cannibal. You wrote about a cannibal. What's wrong with you?
R.R. Martin, who's writing all this, there's tons of rape scenes and murder. It's like
incest.
Yeah.
It's called entertainment.
Yeah.
Thank
you.
It's called fiction. It's fiction.
This one's totally random. What's the name of the
model?
I get that question all the time. He was from the first two books in that series were from a stock photo site.
No.
Yeah, because they don't give, the photographers don't give them credit. So I can try to find out who this guy is because everybody is obsessed with him, but I don't know. The other two I know, but not the first two.
Dang it.
Yeah.
Good job with the stock photo. I didn't think you could get like.
They're so good.
Thank you.
You didn't have to Photoshop the tattoos on, did you?
No. I just moved him over. Well, my cover designer, Letitia Hasser, just moved him left because I wanted everybody kind of off to the left because it was a full picture of him.
Right.
And I just found
a little hipster. He looks a little hipster, but I don't mind.
Is it the hair? Is it like
Well, for me, that's what it is. For me, it's that, and then like that it's like a patterned shirt. It's a patterned shirt. I am obsessed with this. I'm not saying, but I mean that's why I'm like.
I will let him know. I will let him know that you don't like his shirts.
Well, because in the book he wears all black suits. Honestly, I don't think he'd have a patterned shirt, but I don't care. I'll still eat him with a spoon. I'm fine.
I just love how they're positioned. They're like it's always like a piercing stare.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, okay.
They're all very alpha. What was really fun for me is choosing. So I knew I wanted the Sojmani for Savage Hearts because I just have a thing for him.
He's been a werewolf before, so I have seen.
Okay. Well,
I've seen that stock photo.
Yeah,
but never seen this one. Anyway, sorry, you're talking about.
I haven't seen him. Yeah, so Sojmani, I knew I wanted him for that one, and I picked that really quick. And now he's on tons of covers. I see him everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But the third one, his name is Christopher Jensen, and he's just such an amazing guy. I love this guy. I follow him on Instagram. He's the sweetest, goofiest teddy bear of a dude. And he just looks like, he's tatted. He looks amazing. So I had such a great time going through all of his galleries looking for his cover because his photographer was really great. He's really hot. So I was like, oh. Took me a week. I'm like, send me more.
You're like, yeah.
I can't find it. Yeah, Anyway.
Yeah.
That's a fun part.
Like, that one's a great picture too. I love these. I love the sparks around like all these ones too.
Mm.
Those covers are. I mean, I like the Beautifully Cruel ones too. That's the same model, isn't it? In both pictures?
Nope.
No, it's not.
And you know what's funny about that? No, different guy. Well, you see how big the beard is in Beautifully Cruel? It's kind of a bigger beard. So when I sold the foreign rights to Poland, they put a different guy's head on that because they thought his beard was too big. Yeah, it's two different guys, two different cover models.
These are like the same though.
I know. The cover designer did the tattoos to make.
I mean, you definitely can do that. I was just like, wow.
Yeah, different dudes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Love it. Let's see. Madison, Tiffany, do you have some questions?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Okay. So I've been waiting for my moment.
It's your turn.
I love AJ from your Bad Habits series.
He's a good guy. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, like, how did his character come to you? Because the way in which you put words to how he sees sound was absolutely beautiful. And the fact that he listens to opera music, I loved that book. So I was like, I just had to figure out, like, how did he come to you, that character and his condition?
Well, because he's a musician, I don't know if you've ever known any drummers.
I have.
They're special people. Yeah. And drummers are really hard, right? And musicians in general are, and all artists are different kinds of people. But AJ he's a loner. He's a total outsider. He has a very tragic backstory. But even more tragic is that he knows, I don't know if I should tell this spoiler if anybody hasn't read this book, but he knows that he can't love this girl who he wants to fall in love with for a very good reason, right? So he's really trying not to fall in love with her or let her fall in love with him. And there's a very good reason for that. And it's a very unselfish reason. And as I got to know him better during the book, it just made sense to me to make him he sort of has like extra sensory perception. And this is a real thing, chromesthesia, where people can see sounds. And I thought it was fascinating when I was doing the research for it. But it just makes him part of who he is. He's so sensitive to sound. And one of the reasons that he falls in love with Chloe is because he hears her singing and he can see it. So I just thought that was a very different way to approach someone falling in love, because you hear the sound of their voice and you're just so affected by it. And AJ is definitely one of he's a fan favorite. He's a reader favorite because he's a big softie, but hard on the outside and has a lot of. I like to give people tragic backstories. Bad things happen to my people in the past, but that's why it makes falling in love so much sweeter, because you finally find somebody who gets you and gets all of your darkness, and their broken pieces mesh with your broken pieces. And to me, that's beautiful, right? When I could just go on and on, but yeah, AJ is one of my favorites. He's one of my favorites. And to pair him, someone so broken, with someone who grew up in a very privileged, sort of sheltered, she's just a very happy girl, and her sort of learning about him and accepting him, because a lot of people in that situation would just be totally turned off by how he is and everything. But she was curious about him and she wanted to know what made him tick. And she saw beyond just what he presented to the world, which is how so many people are. All of us are really. We present a certain face to the world. And his was, mean and gruff, and he was mean to her to push her away because he was really attracted to her and he didn't want it to develop into anything for her sake, because he knew that it would be really bad for her. And I always want to write another character like AJ, but I'm like, you already did that. You already did that storyline, So
I love it though. And going back to speaking about the dialogue, that's what I loved about that book, that he lays there and they just talk to each other. Like the way in which they interact with each other on this like vulnerable and visceral level that isn't always have to do with the steam. It was just beautiful. So I love AJ.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. And I like to have a big badass guy who eventually breaks down and he can cry, and he cries and he is really emotional. It's just a beautiful journey to see somebody like that give it all up and fall in love and be like, yes, I will die for you, because this is worth more than anything, really. It's worth more than my life to love you. So yeah, I'm getting all teary, AJ. Sorry. Yeah.
I love that. Oh, Candace wanted to ask if we're getting other covers for the series.
Yes. Yep.
Good.
They're all getting alternate covers right now. So I put up the alternate cover for Ruthless Creatures and I sold out a few thousand books like in an hour. I didn't know that. Yeah. And I didn't have that many sell. So I'm like, so I have to order a whole bunch more books, but it's a very popular alternate cover. So yes, the whole series will be getting that. And I only ship US on my website just because it's been so crazy with COVID and all the different international shutdowns and nightmares. It's really expensive. So I will put them up on Amazon so that people in other countries can get them too, but they won't be signed, but they can get the alternate covers. Yeah. Yeah.
There was a couple, one of your like biggest fans in my group. She was like, I'm so jealous. I can't have it. I'm in Germany. I was like, I'm sorry. I'm just blessed.
It's available. Actually, it's available now. The alternate cover is available on Amazon now, and so she can buy it in Germany. Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
It's up there
Okay.
now. Yeah.
Good.
It just can't. She can't get it signed, but she can buy the alternate cover. Yep.
I was one of the people who accidentally, when I first read Ruth Screeches, and I was like, "Oh, I'm thinking of reading this," and I went online, and the alternate cover was already up, and I was like, "I feel like this is not supposed to be there," so I just bought it, and then it disappeared, and I go, "Nah."
Yeah. I know. Yeah. I need a manager. I'm very random. I mean, it's like, I'll put it up there and it'll be like, oh, okay, now I just ordered it and I'll take it down. And people are like, I don't understand what's happening. Oh, thank you, Daniela.
Now she's like, I'm getting it. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then Madison had sent me up and she's like, did you see this cover? I was like, no. And then like the next day I was like, oh, I was going to get that. And it was gone. And I was like,
yeah.
Damn it.
Yes.
That's
yeah.
okay.
It's a little unpredictable.
It's all an aesthetic thing. If you can't tell, like most of the books that I own that are like indie published, it's because I've already read them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not like I have to have another cover, but
we want to collect. We love collecting.
Book hoarding is a real thing. My husband is not a reader. He's never read one of my books, which is probably good. But when I first moved in with him, my book collection came with me, of course, and he's like, like, why? I'm like, you don't understand. You don't understand, right? Like,
you would be like, all these books I've read is a reason that I was willing to go on a date with you after 2 seconds. So
right?
In the book,
Be thankful.
Weirdo. Yeah.
I would not be this.
Yeah.
This impulsive if I didn't believe.
Had you seen his dimples, you would have done the same thing, girl. I'm just saying. Yeah.
I believe it. We love it. All the pretty shelves. Yeah.
Exactly, Justin.
You do all the pretties for the shelves. I know that, which means we can never move because you'd have to pack up all this stuff.
Do you know how many times I have moved?
Oh,
a lot.
I don't feel. Yeah, I feel sorry for you.
There's 2 more than you can see here. Like it's not.
I have no open.
Just the anxiety just thinking about that. Like, oh God.
When I moved into this apartment, I had 500 books, and now I have 1,800 books. So
you can't leave.
And she has a library. She's got it all organized. Like
this is like the shortest shelf. Like over here, we got all the historicals. In my room, we got all the historicals.
It's the historicals.
Yeah, it's true. They're the smallest ones, but
you have that insured. You might want to get like a little policy.
Ooh, legit. I do have
that's a lot of financial investment in buying those. I mean,
it is. It's my only vice. Like seriously, chocolate cake and books is my only vices. Well, and
good vices though. I mean, that's
it is.
Good, right?
It's great vices. Half of my collection of books is Outlander versions of Outlander. So there's I could sell that for a good amount of money. I would never.
If you fall down that rabbit hole, it's like there's no coming back. Even my husband watched the whole series. He's like, oh my God. Yeah. Amy. Hello.
I mean, hello. This is for real. Like we don't I literally commissioned, it's being worked on right now. My best friend is an artist and I commissioned Craig Nadoon at Sunrise. That's going to go above it's like this big. And it's the sunrise.
Is you and Jamie like
but it's literally like the end of season 2 when the sun is coming up at Craig Nadoon when she's like, I have to go back. She's doing that for me. So
nice.
Paying $500 for this piece of artwork. So
there you go.
Sometimes it's worth it.
This is why you should Photoshop on there with Jamie. Just
right.
Like,
no, I'll get one of the pocket Jamies. You can get like the Elf on a Shelf. They have like a pocket Jamie, and I'll just put me with him. We'll just do that.
Got it. Okay.
I love it. Yay, moving with books. Yeah, Justin just moved recently.
Yeah, I stopped buying books in like 2021 because I knew I was moving, and it was soul crushing. But now I'm bringing them in, so I'm like, okay. Well, everything that I have, I know is like a 5-star read that I absolutely love, but it was hard to stop buying them physically.
I can't imagine. That's what I do.
So
go ahead.
Book, even you go like libraries. I like to wander around libraries every once in a while. And you just pick up an old book, and you're just like,
the smell.
What about the smell of the paper? The smell, yeah. I have a word for that. I don't know what it is. The smell of a book, but I love it. Yeah. But I also love my Kindle.
Yeah. Maybe
is it mold? I like
Kindle
mold,
is a great
apparently.
I was just laughing. I was just teasing. I used to like my bedroom was in the
Wow,
basement.
Jen.
For 4 years. Yep. I mean, I didn't get this crazy by accident. So like my whole collection, no joke, my whole collection of like Aragon, Twilight, like I just said Stephanie Meyer, like all those books were in my basement for like 5 years, and they all had little dots of like mold on this.
Oh wow.
I was able to like clean them and like refresh them, but it was not a good place.
Well, you got a little bit of lug damage. It's fine. Yeah.
You know, it's good stuff. But anyway, any more questions, ladies? I told you we go through 90 minutes just as quick as
I know.
You've been on here. Yeah.
It's so easy.
I love it. Well, thank you so much. You were my birthday treat for myself. So thanks for coming on. Yeah, it's on fun, but I was like, I really want her to come in my birthday month because that would be great. So thanks for making that happen for us.
You're welcome. It's really fun. I'm very flattered. When I first started writing, I just wanted one person to read my books, and now I have these people who contact me like, I love your books. I'm like, so it means a lot to me because I'm just in here in my little weird room, writing my little weird stories. Like, I don't know if you guys are going to like it. I'm just amusing myself. So
yeah,
I'm glad you do.
It works out. Well, yeah. Thank you everyone for coming out tonight and spending Daylight Savings Day. I know we're probably all super tired. I'm going to try to make myself go to bed early. Probably won't happen. But yeah, thanks for joining us, everybody. And we'll see you for the next one.
Okay. Bye guys. Thank you.